Good morning. Um, so we'll take you very quickly over some projects that we have done as part of MoD Foundation. This one in particular is about public space. Having practiced in the field for a few years now, we've sort of realized that public space means a lot of different things to different people. But I think the one thing that is common is that everyone wants them, everyone likes them. And it's a process more than a product, especially with the number of stakeholders involved in the public realm. So we'll quickly go over. So if we look at the last index of livable cities in India, on the left you'll see a column which is basically cities with population over 1 million. Bangalore ranks number 1 in the most livable city in the country, right? But what is interesting is that if one looks at that little framework there, it talks about how they calculate what the score of a city is, right? So if we break that down, Bangalore actually ranks fairly low in quality of life. It's 55.67. Very low in sustainability, which is 59.97. It ranks very high when it comes to economic ability and very high when survey. So people who move to Bangalore, who live in Bangalore, what they think of the city, right? But the two factors that rank the lowest are actually the two factors that we care more about. How do we get to our workplaces? Do we have opportunity? Do we have good schools for us, for our children? Sustainability in terms of just overall health and wellness, right? As we look at how the city has grown over the last 25, 30 years, the numbers are fairly staggering, right? The population is up almost 325%. The area of the city has grown about more than 400%. The last piece is the most staggering, right? If the ratio of the number of people to a vehicle in the city is almost 1:1, which is quite shocking because it kind of gives you a picture into how the city has thought about public transportation. And so this really is an opportunity to think about public spaces and how we can create more public spaces within the city, right? It's an opportunity. How do we do this? How do we design a city which is more people friendly? So this is the fourth avatar of Vishnu. It's Narsimha. And we drew parallels as something fun that Narsimha could not be killed inside or outside, neither during the day or the night. So I won't go through the whole thing, but the state of our cities are sort of in that same paradox, right? They're either planned or organic or not planned at all. There are what is better, are satellite cities better, is decentralized growth better? What is the identity of a city, right? We can't keep emulating the West in terms of their glass towers and freeways. Should the economic ability and the opportunities available in the city be driven by certain factors? What is more important, how fast one gets to where they need to, or if they get there safely? So these are some of the things that we've sort of tried to address during some of the projects that we do. Largely, public spaces will fall within these 4 sectors, right? So there's private. So a gated community, for example, where one can't just walk in, one has to be invited in. Private-public, which it could still be a space that is not gated, but there are surveillance systems, there's monitoring. So it is still privatization of a public space. There's a public-private space, and then there's a public, semi-public space. So these are sort of the sectors that they broadly fall within. And one of the first experiments that the firm did was a project called Brigade Gateway. It's a mixed-use development. The glass tower is where the Amazon headquarters is currently in Bangalore. That's Orion Mall to the left. And the water body that you see is actually a public space. And anybody entering the complex can experience this as a public space, but within a private gated community. So moving from there, this was one of the first urban design projects that the firm was involved with. Everyone's familiar with Church Street. It's a fairly popular hangout area, but what it is now wasn't what it was a few years back. This is really what it was. Water was an issue, sewage was an issue. In a lot of cases, parking overtook a lot of the functions that were happening on the street. And when one dug beneath, that was the state of the services. From what we understand, there were 5 different high tension wires 6 inches below the surface of the road. What you see as water on the left is actually raw sewage. There were pipes all the way from the 1930s, from the British era, which were still being used as much as they could in the state that they were in. A lot of the electrical lines sort of ran without casing underneath. And so the idea really became, even though that this project started with the idea of beautification, which is a word that we hear quite often when it comes to urban designing in the city, it really became about engineering below the ground, because that is where a lot of the functioning of the road is. What you see above is literally 30 to 40% of what the road actually should be doing. And the idea really was very simple. This is a cross section, but very simply, it basically organized all of the services that were below grade very, very neatly and simply, ensuring that tomorrow, if there is a problem, the road is not dug up. And so these are some of the before afters. This is when the work was started. That's what the street looks like now. This is the junction in front of Church Street Social. That's what it looks like now. The one thing that we have found out is that you must have read articles about cobblestones loose on the street, or the city is not maintaining it enough. And that really comes down to maintenance, right? There are annual maintenance contracts that the city signs in order to make sure that whatever infrastructure that they have is taken care of. Unfortunately, there isn't complete follow through a lot of the times, and so we keep seeing articles a little bit like this. But our learning, which was very important to us, was that if you put public into public infrastructure, and by public we mean human public, a lot of the times there's a mechanism of self-monitoring, right? That kind of happens organically. Not all infrastructure needs to be gray and utilitarian. It can still look pretty and nice and be functional at the same time. Also, to change the mindset of what a standard contract should be. So instead of just a design operate, we experimented with design, build, manage, transfer. So basically, there's someone who does the concept design, and then the contractor does the design. The contractor does the actual execution, and once the project is over, they also manage and maintain the project for the next 5 years. So there's buy-in for the contractor to make sure that the work that he does is good, so that he's able to do what he needs to once the project is over. Taking these learnings, we went from a fairly small project to a fairly large one. This is the K100 Citizens Waterway. K100 basically stands, it's the name of a drain. It's the nomenclature that BBMP uses for all of their drains. K stands for Koramangala, so it's in the Koramangala Chalgatta Valley. It's the first primary drain, which is why it's called K100. And if everyone's familiar with Bangalore, the blue line that you see is actually the K100 drain. It starts at Majestic, so at what used to be Dharmabuddhi tank, and then it comes all the way down through the old city, Sudhamnagar, Kalasipalya, Shantinagar, Koramangala drains into Belandur. The red line that you see is actually the trunk sewer of the city. By that I mean all the sewage of Bangalore city flows through the trunk sewer of the city. Now in some places, it's under roads and older houses. And in a lot of the places, it's actually under the bed of the K100 drain, right? What does that do? And we'll answer that question. Every drain has a watershed, which basically means that any water that falls within a particular area will find its way to K100. In the case of K100, it was about 32 square kilometers, right, which is a considerably large area in the center of the city. And so the project really started in June 2020. It was presented to the then Chief Minister, Mr. Yedurappa, and then various different experts with the Pollution Control Board, the National Green Tribunal, and then the work finally began somewhere in May 2021. It was supposed to be about a year and a half. The project is still continuing for various different reasons. But when we started, the image that you see on the left, this is within Kalasipalya, and all of that black-gray material that you see is actually silt. This hadn't been cleaned from the drains in we are not sure how long. And so what that did was basically clog up the drain. And so the carrying capacity of the drain, or the amount of sewage, or well, not sewage, but stormwater it is supposed to carry, was 100%. It was reduced to close to 30%. And the idea really became to de-silt. So that is what those men are doing. They're cleaning, desilting, and then introduce a pathway within the drain where possible, based on our own calculations and simulations that were done by the Karnataka State National Disaster Monitoring Committee. And so as of now, the first phase is about 95% done, the second phase 50, the third stage about 50. During the course of this project, a lot of things happened. The desilting, like I said, hadn't been done. Close to 12,000 truckloads of silt were removed from these drains. A lot of the sewage outflows that was being discharged within the drain was removed. I think something which is not tangible is mindset of people. It's not a MoD, right? It is a storm water drain. It's not meant to carry sewage. It's supposed to carry water. So there's this. Sorry, can we have the volume?
For us was to bring public into public infrastructure by simply bringing down the retaining walls. People are able to see across the drain. We created additional bridges, more lighting in order to increase safety. In doing this, we hope that we are able to extend on almost everyday public space in the city. It's important to have neighborhood level public spaces that are open to the public and open 24/7.
As part of the same tender, there was also a 1 acre piece of land identified within Kalasipalya, where a 5 MLD STP is being built. It should be operational within another month. The idea was to decentralize a lot of the infrastructure that the city is making, right? This is something that we continue to deal with even today. There are a lot of smaller dying units, cottage industries along the stretch of the drain. So sometimes the water is red, sometimes it's blue, and it's not feasible to remove these cottage industries from the city. They're sort of interconnected. And so this idea of using plants to clean the water naturally was introduced to address this large, small percentage of affluents that are released in the drain. And what we thought was a fairly simple structure, that this is a project that is owned by BBMP. Suddenly a whole host of stakeholders emerged that we continue to deal with, to make sure that there's coordination within the various different stakeholders. To show you the progress of the last 2.5, 3 years, this is in front of Shanti Nagar bus stop. and we were actually lucky to get a vacant piece of land. What you see boarded up was actually a vacant piece of land. This was a condition belongs to BMTC. This was the condition in most places where there were services cutting through across the drain. All of these were rerouted. This is what the space looks like today. There's a public plaza. A lot of the people who are waiting for their buses actually come and wait at the upper level plaza opposite the bus stop. A lot of the bridges, close to 25 bridges, were redone. This was the state of the bridge further down from the Shantinagar bus stop. And this is what it looks like today. So new bridges, no structural supports that fall within the drain channel to make sure that there is no blockage. Within Sudam Nagar, so the chambers that you see sticking out inside the drain are actually maintenance chambers of the trunk sewer line that runs underneath. So the fences were brought down, the retaining wall was brought down, and then at intervals these access balconies were created so that BWSSB could continue to maintain whatever they needed to in terms of their infrastructure. Again in Sudam Nagar, this was the state of the bridges. So you see one footbridge there. This was a vehicular bridge. And then so you can see the new footbridge there. But essentially all of this infrastructure was redone, rethought as part of this project. These are some of the older bridges within Kalasi Palya. It was a conscious decision to do something which was a little bit more traditional in look and feel. This is further downstream. So as you can see, the retaining walls were brought down, flower beds were created, new streets were laid, and it's really made a difference to how the community perceives their own space as well. And then this is the pathway that leads down to Koramangala within the drain. Every 3 to 5 minute walking distance, there are these access staircases, and then that's the main entry at the Shantinagar bus stop on Double Road. What's interesting is that this is what it looks like on any normal day. And then when it rains, this is what happens. So the water, the plants that are used within this plaza are designed to be submerged for a period of 24 to 48 hours. We've never seen the water level go up higher than this, which is great. This is within Sudam Nagar during the rains. So we need the volume, please.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಇವಾಗ ಏನೋ ಐಸ್ ಕ್ರೀಮ್ ಪಾರ್ಲರ್ಗಳು ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಒಂದು ಸವಲತ್ತು ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಅದು ತಂತಾನೆ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕಲ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್. ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ 300 ರೂಪಾಯಿ 3,000 ಇರುವಂತಹ ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಫೀಟ್ ಇರೋ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ 12,000 ಆದಾಗ ಅಷ್ಟು ಹಣನ ನಾವು ಆ ಜನರು ಜೇಬ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಲೆಕ್ಕ. ಸೊ ಮೋರ್ ದನ್ ದಟ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ, ಜನ ಭಯ ಬೀಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಆ ಒಂದು ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ರೌಡಿ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಆಂಟಿ ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಆ ಜನ ಹೋಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು ಜನ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳಕಾಯಿತು. ಇವತ್ತು ಕತ್ಲು ಗವಿ, ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದರು, ಆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ಲೈಟ್ಸ್ನ ಹೊಡೆದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನು ಕತ್ಲು ಗವಿ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಸೊ ಇವತ್ತು ಹಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಟ್ ಲೈಟ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ಜನ ಅಲ್ಲಿನೂ ಓಡಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಫಸ್ಟು JC ರೋಡಿಂದ ಲಾಲ್ಬಾಗ್ ರೋಡ್ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಯಾರು ಆ ಒಂದು ಪಾತಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಕಟ್. ದೇ ಯೂಸ್ ಟು ಗೋ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ದಿ ಮೇನ್ ರೋಡ್ಸ್. ಇವಾಗ ಜನ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಹೇಳೋದು ಮರ್ತೋದೆ, ಈ ವಾಕಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಜನ ಮರ್ತೇ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲ 2 ವೀಲರ್ಸ್ನ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಫುಟ್ಪಾತ್ ಸರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮತ್ತು ಇದು ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು JC ರೋಡಿಂದ ಕೋರಮಂಗಲಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂದರೆ ಬಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಬೌಟ್ 16 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. 16 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ನೀವು ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಈ ವಾಟರ್ವೇ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ 7 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟಿಂದ ಕೋರಮಂಗಲ ಮುಟ್ತೀರ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಶಾರ್ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್. 7 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ಒಬ್ಬ ನಡೀತಾನೆ, 1 ಗಂಟೆ ಸ್ಪೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಈಸಿಲಿ ವಾಕ್ 7 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ಸ್. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಇದು ಒಂದು ವಾಹನಗಳ ದಟ್ಟಣೆ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೂ ಇದು ಒಂದು ಉಪಯುಕ್ತವಾದ ಒಂದು ಯೋಜನೆ.
So before this project started, we did a flood mapping with the help of the Karnataka State National Disaster Board, and they had identified about 23 potential flood points. Most of them were at bridges. A lot of the reasons for that was because the structural supports actually fell within the drain. These reduced to 7 by March 2021. At the moment, we have none. In fact, in the last the last bad flooding in September 22, this drain did not flood at all. That was the highest water level that we saw within the plaza in front of Shantinagar bus station. Using this pilot, BBMP has actually been able to secure close to 3,000 CR in order to upscale this particular solution across the city. So that's phase 2. We're probably not the only ones going to be involved. There are a lot of other people who are interested. The government has taken a lot of good steps towards ensuring that the city is resilient for the future. And really that's where we started from, right? That this is what we call a render. It's not real, but for us to understand what the design of the plaza would be. And over the last 2.5, 3 years, this is where we've come, which is fairly close to where we started, a design on the computer. And in terms of handing over, the maintenance and management continues. There are fair amount of guidelines on how to manage certain situations. All of the CCTV security feeds are all directly connected to the integrated command center, which is at the BBMP head office. So there's constant monitoring to ensure that this project continues to become what it was supposed to.
So, hi, I'm going to be explaining from now, and just briefly the last 2 projects that Nidhi has taken you over, the idea is that to create that public space, the impact that we want to see on the ground, there is a lot of things that need to happen behind the scenes, underground, in terms of infrastructure, development, in terms of management, for even a small proportion of the city to function the way it has to. And so we can't only think of public space creation as beautification, like what Nidhi started out saying. And in that context, this is a project again in Vivipuram Thindi Bidi. The idea is to just upgrade the street services and create a better environment for the visitors to the street. So this is Bangalore South Zone, and Vivipuram Thindi Bidi comes around here. It is at a at a city scale also, it attracts a lot of people who come here to have the specific snacks that are being made over here, and especially during Avrekai Pariche and the Sajan Rao Circle festivals, there are a lot of crowd that specifically comes to this space, and hence there is a potential for it to be known as a city-wide public space as well. So, this is how the street was about 2 years ago. The proposal that you can see on the right is basically considering the factors that we see below, which is you have to consider people safety. The vehicles are still going through the street in the night when there is so many people that are standing there that there is no space for the vehicles to actually go. Some amenities for the people there, including solid waste management, just a chair, table, hand wash facilities, etc. Livability, in that you need to actually interact with other agencies, and with such a strong concentration of these food vendors and shops, there is a possibility to share resources between them and to create pedestrian friendly and visitor friendly spaces there, and to create a distinct identity for this street. So this is where we started. This was the proposal where we are proposing that the road be slightly narrowed. The and made uniform according to most tender show guidelines in the city. The idea is that during the day it is open for vehicular traffic, but during the evening from 6 to midnight when the shops are open, it works only as a pedestrian street. And there are benches and tables that are inbuilt, including planters on the stride, which allow the people naturally to sit there, you directly take some dosa from the darshini, you keep it there and you eat it, and the solid waste management is again taken care of collectively. This is again during the evening time when the vehicles are not allowed in the street. And this was the state when we started. There is a lot of say broken infrastructure management, which also, when you're eating and you see some open sewage falling near you, it doesn't create a very good environment or hygienic environment. So the idea was to address all of that uniformly. Yeah, so these are some of the issues. This is during construction. This is where we are right now. We are almost completed. We're in the process of designing 2 small plazas, one towards Sajjan Rao Circle, one towards the back, so which can act as more, say if you want to take something and you want to sit there and eat, you can do that as well. And that will also act as it's not only for, say, visitors to the street, those 2 spaces will also act for your residents of the area. So this is another type of project. This is a proposal that we had made to the government a while ago, and right now it's on hold. So the Mysore Lamp Works, as you would know, was started during the 1930s in Yashwantpur corner. It stopped functioning around 1996, and since then the property, about 22 acres of the property with built industrial buildings, all infrastructure buildings, has basically been empty, and it is completely owned by the state. The potential is, the larger idea behind this, that there are a large number of these industrial, unused industrial areas in the heart of the city. And how can we start reusing them or repurposing them in order to serve our current purposes, but also we shouldn't lose what they already offer to the city, right? So what it is right now is, it's right there. It is very close to 2 metro stations. The Yashwantpur bus depot is right opposite. The Yashwantpur railway station is right there. So it is a very accessible space within the city. It is also right next to the railway line. It is right next to this very dense residential area, and it can also act as a green space for the residential area. This is an aerial view of how it actually looks like now. So because of this, such a 22 acres of the central city that's being abandoned, it is a very green. It's like a large green asset within the city, and this is sort of how it looks like from the railway track side. So this is the railway track, and what we imagined to repurpose this street is to adaptively reuse it, in that we can try to utilize the infrastructure that is already present, not disturb it too much, but try and see what value it can be added to make it usable, or make it's just a wasted asset being gated and closed up like that. So the larger proposal was to have a spatial planning center and a Bangalore gallery where the citizens can learn about the city, but also we said there is a large dearth of spatial planning in the city in terms of the smaller nitty-gritties, that if you're like say, even with our learning from the K100, if the larger reason why the Rajakaloes flood is because they are 60 to 70% filled with sewage, which they are not supposed to be. So if that is designed well, then you won't have that problem. But the problem is that they are all being designed and executed in isolation. So the idea is that we need to bring everything together. So this could potentially be a space that brought together, and you can bring in the public to learn about this. Hence, sort of evolving our idea of bringing public into the public infrastructure, creating more citizen awareness on what are the issues that affect their livability and their their ease of living in the city, and to have better conversation across the board. So this would create a space where the government, the experts and the citizens can actually come together and brainstorm, or the government can also inform that this is what is going to happen. And and the rest of these spaces were being developed as mainly public space with some food streets, workshop spaces and parks. This was the master plan that was created for it. So what exactly is that space? It's a space to visualize the city. So maybe you can come and you have a model where you see the city. This works for both citizens. It works for people actually trying to work in the city, or it works for the government staff, the engineers, the bureaucrats, and it works for, say, a tourist also who's coming to the city who wants to understand what is actually happening in the city. To a space to experience the history and the developments of the city, a space to learn about what the city is doing, how is the city's energy consumption, for example, how can each individual citizen in their own home do something that helps the larger agenda of energy conservation in the city. A space to imagine the future, a space where, both children, students, young people as well as experts and established professionals can come together and think, what can the future of this be like? What do the children imagine their future being? And then how do we actually try to incorporate that into the city's vision? What is interesting is that if you look at the city's projected population growth and the last few decades of population growth, what you can see as dark blue is the current population, and the lighter blues is the projected population within the next decade. And we can see that the projected population in cities is most in like a Asian area, except where there are multiple city visualization centers, city labs, urban labs as they are called, and not one of them is located in the Indian region. So we said, no, why can't we actually try to create that in Bangalore, also seeing that Bangalore is one of the major global players right now and a very fast growing city. This is in Singapore, where a large scale model of the city center the tourists and citizens are engaging with. This is in London. This is a space that brings together elected representatives, bureaucrats and citizens, and people, community leaders, architects, urban designers, planners, engineers who are working on the city to bring each of their strength and expertise together to solve specific problems that are identified. So this was a render made for the shed in one of the large existing sheds in Mysore Lamps factory, where we could have a large model of Bangalore on the floor, and you can learn about the city. You can experience the past of the city. You can see, how resources have changed from the past to now, and debate on what we can do about that to get over the problem of these multiple agencies working in silos across in the city. So you have a spatial planning center where you can actually, so there is one portion that was meant for public interaction, and but then say this portion could be for the government's use to design and to plan the city, to create and to say, this is like a traffic simulation. If we actually create this much development here, what happens to the traffic that's coming near there? So you try to look at everything in more holistically. This again is another proposal that has been made many times over the years of education and heritage district within the city. If Bangalore, today we are right here inside, like sort of the heart of this area that we are proposing. So from Tipu Sultan's palace, which is in the old fort area, to Bangalore Palace, there is a one long road and a one sort of a 4.5 kilometer walk, which has heritage structures, institutional structures of 4 centuries that you can learn. I mean, you can learn and experience Bangalore of across 4 centuries in this area. And what is interesting is that a large number of government and educational areas fall within this central area. So one aspect of the project is to create a heritage corridor where people can go and view the heritage of the space to understand the history of the city. But another important aspect of it is that these multiple institutions of multiple eras and multiple say agencies being situated so close to each other is actually a very big asset in the city. This is something that cities like London and New York have been able to you utilize, the ability of having, you know, your student population and your entrepreneurial population right next to the government. So in order to bring them together and to actually do something, so there is a very good opportunity in this sense to do it over here. This is some of the heritage buildings across the 4.5 kilometers. And this is the central district primarily. So you have educational areas, which is 90% government universities, and you have government offices. The idea is that you can actually bring them together through multiple ways. You have, you know, so many different types of, streams, many multidisciplinary facilities within this area. And you can and with the new education policy and integration into a larger spatial realm of the city, we can try to look for common resources where students across education universities can share resources, where where things like different companies trying to set up, or to, many companies are also trying to set up campuses within education universities in order to help with the research, or to aid. So many things like that can be thought of in this particular space. Physically, we can, the idea was to install a lot of these signages across, so then you can understand where you are in the city, why is it that important, and have markers, events, people, like important people who lived in these spaces, important activities that took place there, which is an important way to get to know your city. And and an additional thing that could be done is to just create some maps and collateral that anybody who's coming into the city, even I'm sure many students come into the city to come to study in these universities, they can also make use of this and know their surrounding, which will only enrich their learning. Another extension of the similar ideas that you saw earlier in a smaller scale was applied to this public utility building, which is on MG Road, right next to Mayo Hall. And the idea is that, what can we do to reimagine that space? The top space, if there are some old Bangaloreans here, you would remember the top part of this was a restaurant called Top Cappy, and that had views of the whole area. Right now it is completely abandoned and unused, and the rest of the building is occupied by government offices mainly. The building is a little bit not maintained very well, but in essence but the structure and the design is sound and is iconic, and what we think is it's important to maintain the integrity of these structures, but introduce something in it. So we wanted to introduce this as like a sky deck or a viewing deck for the city, where you actually come up onto the 24th floor, and you view the city around here. You can even see older images of how that place used to look like earlier. So this is actually a aerial photograph from roughly around the same area around 1960s. Um, you have like an information center. So this is a very, say, I would say similar idea that was earlier shown, but in a smaller version. So you have information centers. You can experience new sort of artworks within the city. You can have telescopes and viewing podiums in order to view. So this is another
Proposal.
another proposal along the lines of Mysore lamps, where we are planning to reuse existing government infrastructure in order to propose new value to them. So the NGEF land is located right behind the Baipanalli station. And again, it's got very large amount of trees and park and plantations actually, and the very large sheds that are like this. It's about 105 acres of land that is abutting 2 railway lines and the MEG group. This is how it looks. And the larger idea for this space was to, because we have very large sheds, the idea was to incorporate, you know, meetings, conventions, exhibition spaces that is not there in this, you know, this close proximity to the city area, to have sports hubs that are, you know, actual world-class athletic training facilities for the public, open-air concert venues, because, you know, it's not really abutted by very close residential areas. So this would be a key win there. And one thing we were promoting is a large F&B component, especially because we are very close to this Indiranagar areas, which are, you know, we always have we've been having a problem in Bangalore where your commercial activities, nightclub activities are coming too close to residential areas. And the idea is to, I mean, if we really want to have both happening in the city center in terms of the economy and in terms of the different demographics that exist in the city, then moving it, you know, just a little bit away, not very far away from the city, that will also affect the safety of the people going there, would be a very good idea, because this is not close to any residential areas, and hence we can control the noise and sound levels and it not disturbing surrounding areas. The first idea was actually that this top part of the land, which is about 60 acres of just green area, was to be opened as a park for the residents of this area. Especially since in east of Bangalore, we don't have very big parks. I think most recently this is what has been proposed by the government, to actually use the land for a sky deck, though I think this proposal has also now moved to another land. So this is another interesting project that we had worked with the BMRCL to propose. This is Banchankri Junction, in case you are aware. The metro line goes right above it. We are coming from Kanakpura Road on one side and going towards City Market. And the Banchankri Amman temple is right there. The main idea of the project was to connect through a pedestrian skywalk, to connect the TTMC and the metro station that are at the junction, and to allow direct access to commuters between the two. But on further study in this area, we realized that the problem is not, I mean, the TTMC is here, the metro station is here. If we only connect this, it's not really going to solve the problem of the junction. It is one of the most chaotic junctions in the city currently. So this is what happens. We have multiple varying widths of things here, and the TTMC itself, which serves around 5,000 buses a day, is very, I mean, I would say it serves a lot more capacity than what it is designed for. So it actually creates a lot of space problems in the junction, especially with bus parking, idle bus parking, there are 7 bus stops that are outside of this immediate area. So and the and if we wanted to look at a pedestrian connect from here to here, it was not enough to only consider people coming from metro station to the TTMC, because it is also impossible to cross the road and go this way, and we don't have very streamlined traffic movement either for vehicles. So after a very detailed study of pedestrian counts, traffic survey, also vendors, because this is actually a quite an old market in the city, where people from 3-4 generations have been coming, and from Kanakpura side, the villages, every morning at 4 a.m. you see people in like trucks and autos coming with large number of goods to sell. So there are over 368 licensed vendors at the junction. The Banshankari temple is right there, which attracts over 1,000 to 2,000 devotees at least on every Tuesday and Friday, and on specific times of the year it is a lot more than that. The TTMC, like we said, caters to about 5,000 buses a day, and the metro station, I mean, right now it's serving a smaller capacity, like we know, but it is projected to also serve quite large numbers. So it might not be enough. So what we were proposing is to actually have a circular skywalk, but to think of it differently from other skywalks in the city, because if I'm sure you've noticed that we very rarely use skywalks. Even if they are there, everyone you see is trying to cross the road on the ground only, mainly because they are put in wrong locations. They are not very comfortable to use, and most of the times when you have a roof, the side is so completely covered with advertisement panels that I know that it becomes a little dark to walk in there, and so it is not very convenient, and it does not feel safe to use. So the idea was, why do we need to have a roof? Why can't we make it like a a garden or a park in the sky? That actually makes it easier for people to walk and have proper connectivity through. I mean, we have here 4 elevators, 1 escalator, staircases and plazas everywhere. We have ramps as well. So if you look at the day view that was proposed, so in the sense you have not tiny staircases, but big staircases that can actually act as public plazas. A large part of the road design was also to streamline the road geometry to make it conducive for people, like for vehicle movement, not just for idle bus parking. Areas were located around that were designated for extension of the bus stop, for where the bus could be parking, where there will be auto stops, cab stops, which are necessary near so many transport infrastructure. And these types of large plazas, there are 3 of them on 3 sides here, which were designated for the specific, like the 368 registered market, the street vendors that were being put there under different categories. So there was food, there was the temple hawkers, which was mainly flowers and coconuts, and then there were people also. There is a large bamboo market there and pottery. And so at the ground level, they could serve the larger pedestrian network of the city and the larger public space of the city. This is another way to look at the Kaveri Junction, which is the entrance from coming down from Mekri Circle to Palace Roads. So the existing situation is here that you can see. What happens is, when we go straight up Sankey Road, we will have to turn around and go back this way. And the same thing when you come back, you can go straight. The issue is that the underpass that has been put there has not really served the purpose that it has worked for. So the idea was to create a suspension bridge that took you from here directly to here, and so your main Bellary Road is free of any navigation that you're doing, because in road hierarchy and the larger city scale, it is important to designate through roads, and roads where you need traffic to move slower, and roads where they are directly accessing utilities like shops, restaurants, and even houses. So in this case, this is one of the major arteries of the city, and hence it needs through movement, and people coming from Sankey Tank or Malleshwaram side will take the road to go up, and it will serve an additional purpose that, you know, having a suspension bridge this way and you're entering the city like that, it acts as a little archway that they're entering the city. This is a view from the top. So this again was proposed some time ago when the BBMP had actually got almost acquired this amount of land, though I think now that is not going to happen. So this is so what the firm does, as mainly architects and urban designers, we take up a lot of projects, and this is something that we are doing in government educational campuses across the city. You must be aware of the National Law School in Bangalore. This is their campus. So we've recently completed a master plan document for their campus, saying, you know, what are their future growth requirements, looking for 30 to 40 years in the future, and saying, you know, you need so many more academic areas, you need so much more staff requirements, hostels, and then with all of that, how do you still preserve the integrity of the campus, preserve the green spaces, preserve, look at sustainable approaches to the growth. And this is an aerial view of what was planned. And since the completion of this master plan, 2 of these buildings have been, you know, separately awarded in competitions, and then they've started construction. So the idea of the master plan, like it should be for the city, is to actually arrive at, you know, what is the requirement, what should grow. So then I know exactly, you know, in this building I want 10 more classrooms, I need to house so many more students across these streams that we are offering, and hence we will need to build this. So it's ability to build that in. This is a project we are this is still in process of NIMHANS campus in Bangalore. So this campus is very big. It's 135 acres. This is Dairy Circle, so Bannerghatta Road, and that is Hosur Road is coming from, this is Hosur Road, that is coming from Lal Bagh. And so this is the main part of the campus that I think most of us go through if you cut across the city, where the hospitals are. They have residential areas, they have administrative, and, you know, their library functions, museums, and all of that as well. So the large part of this is to say this is an interesting case, because being a government hospital for a very, you know, it's a very important function to have. They're talking about mental health and public space and sort of mental health in the city, which is a lot to do with our living environment. And so it was very important for us that the living environment and the environment of the campus for the patients and for their families and for the doctors and students who are there is actually conducive to what they are learning and teaching and then practicing across the city, across the country and the world. So our major proposal has been to, you know, because right now we go through the campus this way and we cut across their hospital, which is becoming a very big problem for the patients, because it's high traffic area right in the middle of a campus when I'm already stressed to directly going in from, someone has told me I need to go into an emergency department on that side. It's a very stressful situation. So we are trying to reroute the public road, maintain a public access through the space, but also create a integrated hospital area which is very conducive for the students, and then within that create spaces for you know, waiting and external activity and therapy that can integrate with the natural environment of the campus. Because one very big advantage we have in Bangalore is our trees and natural heritage, and we need and there's a very big, you know, the green areas of this campus are over 120 years old, and it's very nice for the patients to be interacting with them, because right now they are unable to. So I'm going to end here. So this is, I would say, the smaller version of one of the multiple proposals we've shown you till now. This is on Church Street. and will be called Bangalore Design Center. It will house discussions on the city. It will house large archives, a large library on the city of Bangalore. We will have maps, databases, photographs, crowdsourced photographs from multiple old families from the city, old employees of your PSUs, etc., that are collated in this one place. So it acts as a database for anybody wanting to learn about the city, to work in the city, and to propose something. And we will be bringing in collaboration with multiple institutions and other stakeholders, we'll try to bring in experts on different subjects so we can have a collaborative discussion and informed opinion on multiple issues to do with the living in the city. So thank you.
I mean, we're happy to answer any questions if there are.
Yes, depending on the relevant stakeholders, yeah. So some, like the Banshankari Skywalk, have been developed with BMRCL partnership, and some of the others, like the industrial lands especially, were directly to the Karnataka government. Some proposals that are specific to BBMP are directly to the BBMP.
So many proposals you have offered, and I think hardly there are any which have been completed, and the rest are like on hold or can't be done.
You're from which firm?
MoD Foundation.
So,
Yes.
So, my question was, does government approach you for these kind of projects, or do you go direct? I mean, do you go self and give return?
To answer your question, if we pitch or if the government approaches us, I think 90% of the time we pitch. Right? A lot of the times the firm is set up in a structure where if we see a particular project announced for the city, we do our own research and we find if there's a better way to do it. Sometimes it just takes a different perspective for someone to see some things differently. But of a random number, but of the 100 projects that we pitch to the government, maybe 2 will work out. But the impact of those 2 is enough for us to continue to work on more pitches like this.
Yeah. And we believe that it is important to put the idea out, regardless of whether someone actually brings it to execution. It is important that other people are also induced to think differently, and maybe they come back with a solution that is, even better, thinking of things that we hadn't. So the idea of also proposing so many of these spatial planning centers or Bangalore centers was to be able to bring together these multiple people who are invested in or planning in the city, and the amount of, and this includes your private companies and stakeholders who are putting so much into the city. They may also have some ideas of things to do better. So the idea is to bring everybody together for us to have better ideas for the future. Yeah.
First of all, I appreciate all your proposals regarding Bangalore. One of the worst what I have experienced of late is that, which you have not taken interest in and you have not mentioned, is all the BDA complexes of 7 BDA complexes of the city.
Yeah.
Why? And why is the government giving it to the private builders and taking the share of just 40% or 30% as per the JV, especially M4 and Maverick? Why is it government property and the public property has been misused for something else?
Yes.
Why can't you guys involve?
So you're right. I'm going to repeat the question, but just so that your question's recorded. The BDA complexes in the city, why isn't more being done for them, right? In fact, one of our proposals, which we haven't brought today, is for the Jayanagar 4th block complex, the BDA complex. And it's unfortunate, you're right. There's a lot of hawkers who were sitting out of there for the longest time. They've been displaced. They're now sitting outside the complex, in fact, because the main complex is shut. We had made a proposal to the city to try and first do a structural assessment, because partial demolition had already begun, particularly in Jayanagar, and as well as make sure that it is redesigned from a user perspective for the public. So we are looking at proposals for, I mean, if you've noticed, a lot of our proposals don't really talk about creating something brand new. Most of them are reusing what we have with smaller, more sensitive additions as much as possible. And that we continue to do. But unfortunately, I don't have an answer to your question. We're not sure why BDA wants to become a real estate developer. It's really...
So you have so much power when you are giving so much proposal to the city. Why not this? You can take up very seriously all the 7 BDA
Yeah, ma'am, we have proposed, but yeah, we, like you said, like a large number of our proposals, we have not been to the BDA. And the bigger, I mean, a problem that is very unique to Bangalore, especially in larger cities in India, is that we have too many parastatals that are working completely independently of each other. So that I would say, especially with the BDA complexes, that has been a very big challenge.
I have a question on the K100 project that you proposed. It also said that all the drains in the city has been covered, correct?
No.
Has been working on all the drains in the city?
No, only in this catchment.
Sorry, the question is... Sorry, please complete it.
There's a constituency which I live in, Shivaji Nagar. So we have a lot of drains. The silt removing process itself hasn't started there.
Right.
Yes.
So it looks so beautiful what you've done in Shanti Nagar. So if I want, because what happens since now it's raining, the water is all on the streets.
Yes.
Correct? So whom are we supposed to contact to get this project done?
So, I'm just going to repeat your question again. So, you're asking if the K100 project has been extended to the rest of the city. So, the answer is no at present. It was a pilot which only spanned about 11 kilometers. And the idea was to test if it works, which it does. And based on which the city or BBMP, Stormwater Drain Department, would then scale up the project citywide. Since then, I think they have secured additional funding granted by the World Bank, and the idea is to scale it up to the rest of the city as well, using this as an example.
To add to her point, there is a annual maintenance budget within BBMP for desilting of drains, which at least from 2016 is to happen annually. So even if you could contact your local ward office, they would be able to desilt specific drains. They're supposed to. Sir, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ತಿರ್ಗಾ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ. What he is asking is because as the chief engineer explained, Rajakaluways are classified as primary, secondary, tertiary, and then go into your roadside drains also. Is there a possibility of closing it like what the government or the BBMP is doing?
Tertiary, secondary, okay. 4th to 5th ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ದೊಡ್ಡದಿರುತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಬೇಡ. Tertiary, posterary ಆ ಥರ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಮುಚ್ಚಕ್ಕೆ ಅವಕಾಶ ಇದೆ. ಶ್ರೀನಗರ ಅದನ್ನ ಮುಚ್ಚಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಈಗ ಓಪನ್ ಇರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ 7 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಹತ್ರ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಜನ.
ಸರ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಹಿಸ್ಟಾರಿಕ್ಲಿ ಸಿಟೀಸ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾಯಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ 20th century ಪೂರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಾಮ್ ವಾಟರು ಇದು ಥರ ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮುಚ್ಚಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಈಗ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ 20 yearsಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಅವರು ತಿರ್ಗಾ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಡೇ ಲೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಎಲ್ಲ ಓಪನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಅದು ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಅದು ಗಾರ್ಬೇಜ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ಸೂವೇಜ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ಇದು ಎಫ್ಲುಯೆಂಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ವಾಟರ್ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಕ್ಲೈಮೇಟ್ ಚೇಂಜಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ರೇಂಜು ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ವರ್ಷ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾನೆ ಇದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಪಾಸಿಟಿನೂ ಕ್ಯಾಲ್ಕುಲೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಡ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ನೆಸೆಸರಿ. ಬಟ್ ರೋಡ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಡ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ಟರ್ಷರಿ ಮೇಲೆ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಡ್ರೈನ್ಸೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಒಂದು 1 ಮೀಟರು 2 ಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಥರ. ಆ ಥರ ಮೆಜಾರಿಟಿ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ಡೇ ಇರೋದು. ಸೊ ಈ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲೂ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ 32 ಸ್ಕ್ವೇರ್ ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ ಕ್ಯಾಚ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಡ್ರೈನ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದು 11.6 ಕಿಲೋಮೀಟರ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದು 10 ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಡ್ರೈನ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಅದು 10 ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ರಿ ಡ್ರೈನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ 4, ಐ ಮೀನ್ ಹಾಫ್ ಆಫ್ 5th ಒನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಮೇಲೆ ರೋಡೇ ಇರೋದು. ಅದು ನಾವೇ ಐ ಮೀನ್ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಸಿಟಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಆ ರೋಡು ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ವಾಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡನ್ ಇಸ್ ಓಪನಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆ ಥರ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಚೆಕ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಇದು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಟರ್ ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೂವೇಜು ಎಫ್ಲುಯೆಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ, ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸೋರ್ಸಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಆ ಥರ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ವಿ. ಬಟ್ going forward, it is better to not close the drains, because even all over the world we are observing that any country that has closed drains in the past, in the last 10-15 years, they are only opening it.
They also have something similar, like like the drain, this part is in a higher level, and from the road the water just flows into the drain, so it's kind of a slope area.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is like bars on the side.
Yeah.
Right.
So that works because I've been also and it's all observed,
Yeah.
and never anything gets stuck, and there is also a natural filter and it works.
Yes.
Right. So your question.
do this?
So your question basically is on road design, right? And designed so that there's very easy water flow. Based on specific calculations on how much water will flow in how much time, and the roadside drains. In fact, a lot of the water is used to water a lot of the plants on the side of the road as well, very naturally. That water goes into the planters, and then from that it flows into the stormwater drain. It's just good engineering. That's what it is. That's all it is.
I would say again, the reason that cannot be does not reflect too much on our roads is again the devolution of powers between the BBMP and the BWSSB, and the fact that our sewer trunk systems are not very adequate also. So within the scope of this project, the BWSSB has undertaken a very large house-to-house survey across this full catchment to just, remove people connecting rainwater from terrace into the sewer line, because that causes an overload on the sewer lines during monsoons, and then the sewer, so then the manholes overflow, and hence where they will only go into the stormwater drain. So you have multiple of these cross connections happening only because of not really thinking about it together. It's not like they are not doing enough on their own.
ಒಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕರೆಕ್ಷನ್. ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ, ಈಗ NGF ಮೈಸೂರು ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ಸ್ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರೀನರಿಯನ್ನ ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದೊಂದು ಪ್ರಪೋಸಲ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಅದ್ರದ್ದು ಅಗತ್ಯ ಕಾಣಲ್ಲ. ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನ ಇತರೆ ಪ್ರದೇಶಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಇಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಯೂಸ್ಫುಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದೇ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಈಗ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆನೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಈಗ NGF ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಪೋಸಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಲ್ವಾ?
ಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇರುವಂತಹ ದಾರಿಗಳಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಲ್ವಾ? ಬಟ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಇರುವಂತ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ರೆಸಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಮನೆ ಇಲ್ದಿರ ಇರೋರು ಬಡವರು ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಥರ ಸಮ್ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆ ಥರ ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ನ ತಗೊಂಡು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದಾಗಿತ್ತಲ್ವಾ?
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್, ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಇದು NGF ಲ್ಯಾಂಡಲ್ಲಿ ಇದು ಗ್ರೀನರಿ ಈ ಥರ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಬೆಟರ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಬೇರೆ ಕಡೆ ಗ್ರೀನರಿ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ. ಹಾಂ
ಅದರೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ದು ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂಗ್ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ವಿಷನ್ ಈಗಾಗಲೇ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಜಾಗಗಳಿದ್ದಾವೆ ಮೇಡಮ್. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಇದು ಆಡಿಟೋರಿಯಮ್ದು ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಬಾಲಭವನ ಆ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಇದಾವಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಥರ ಜಾಗಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವೈ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಯು ಯೂಸ್ ದಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಯುಟಿಲೈಸ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅದರ್ ಪರ್ಪಸಸ್?
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯಿತು ಸರ್. ಗುಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಸರ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ NGF ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಹೈಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಇದೆ, ಓನ್ಲಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಪರ್ಪಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು ಅಂತ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಟ್ರೀಸು ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಆ ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಮುಟ್ಟಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಇದು ಹೌಸಿಂಗ್ ಇದನ್ನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೂ ಅದು ಟ್ರೀಸು ಮುಟ್ಟಂಗಾಗಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಗೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟಿ ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಏರಿಯಾಗೆ, ದ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್ ಅದು ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಲಾಲ್ಬಾಗ್ ಕಬ್ಬನ್ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಇರೋದೇ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸಸ್ ನಮ್ಮ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರಲ್ಲಿ. ಆ ಕಡೆ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಸೈಡ್ಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಆ ಥರ. ಅದೇ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಒನ್ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡೆಡ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಟೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್. ಹಾಂ, ಅದು ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅದು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಆಕ್ಸೆಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ. No sir, we are talking about access to green area, sir. Access to green area. Yeah, yes sir, but everybody can't go to MEG land for a picnic or just walking, no sir. Yeah. So the sheds also, sir, the idea is to have minimal minimal change to the existing infrastructure. That is what our proposal was based on. Though you are right that we require more government facilities and housing and all of that, but that again sir, ನಮ್ಮದು ಐಸೋಲೇಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಪೋಸಲ್ ನೋಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಮಾಸ್ಟರ್ ಪ್ಲಾನಿಂದ ಎಷ್ಟು ಹೌಸಿಂಗ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದೆ, ಇದು ಏನು ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಫೆಸಿಲಿಟೀಸ್ ಹಂಗೆ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಪ್ಲ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೇ ಆ ಥರ ಇದು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಂ, ಸರ್ ಅದು ಹೈಕೋರ್ಟ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ಇದೆ ಮೇನ್ಲಿ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಈಸ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟು ಬಿ ರಿಟೈನ್ಡ್. ಐ ಮೀನ್ ದ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸರ್ವ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಪರ್ಪಸ್. ಆ ಥರ ಲೂಸ್ ಆಗೇ ಇದೆ. ಇದು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಜಡ್ಜ್ಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ.
ಅರ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಡೇಸಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನೇ ಗಾರ್ಬೇಜ್ ಇದ್ರೂ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಂದು ಆ ಟ್ರೈನ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಈಗ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಎಜುಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್? ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ? ಅವ್ರೀಗ ಆಗ್ತಿದಾರಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ? ಆ ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಥ್ರೋಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಗಾರ್ಬೇಜ್ ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಟ್ರೈನ್ ಈಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ರಿಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್?
Okay. So the question is in the K100 project, because they are mainly low income areas adjacent to it, how are we managing the garbage management and collection, especially since that was what they were used to. Sir, what we have done from the start of the project is the first round of stakeholders was the BBMP SWM department and the marshals. They have been monitoring everything, and we have created trackers and GPS systems for every tipper that is over there, because the collection was actually a problem. And with help of multiple NGOs apart from and ourselves, we have in especially Sudhamnagar area, up the Kalasipala area, and in between there are specific Kumbargundi areas, and some specific slums are there, so like D'Souza Garden, idu cement colony atara, and further downstream the LR Nagar tara tumba doddu slum rehabilitation area ide. So in all of these areas we have worked specifically with other NGOs to document. We've done some community games, engagement programs. ಅದೇನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು, ಐ ಮೀನ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಎಕ್ಸೈಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅವರೇ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಅಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಎಲ್ಲಗ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಈ ಥರ ಸೆಗ್ರಿಗೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ದ ಮೇಜರ್ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಫೇಸಿಂಗ್ ಇಸ್ ದ collection is not on time, sir, and collection is not enough. So that is something we are trying to improve on, but the amount of garbage that we have seen has drastically reduced. It has not fully stopped. It has reduced.
Correction ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ಧರ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿ, you are using that word ಧರ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿ is like not a ಧರ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿ, ಧರ್ಮ ಬುದ್ಧಿ is like
Yes, Dharma.
I just have a question about the same K and project. So first 18 years of my life I've spent in Slamnagar. I grew up in Slamnagar, so I understand how big it was a problem for the local people there.
Yeah.
Whenever there was rain, the water used to
Yeah.
come out of it. And I've seen that. So, but thing is that the complication of this project is it cuts across multiple constituencies.
Yes.
Which has representative from multiple parties.
Yes.
There's a BJP MLA, there's a Congress MLA.
Yes.
So, what was the most difficult thing? Because and all of them have their own vested interest there.
Yes.
So, how difficult was it to get them all together? And how did you manage it? What was the most challenging part?
Yeah. Sir, so to repeat your question, the K100 drain goes through multiple constituencies, multiple MLA constituencies and assembly constituencies actually, and many wards. So the question is what was the most difficult in that integration, and I would say because each of them has their own agenda and factor. Yeah. So this goes through 3 MLA constituencies. 2 is, like you said, 2 are Congress, 1 is BJP. And there are 23 wards. There are also, I mean, even if we are looking at it from an administration and maintenance point of view, because the BWSSB trunk sewer line is coming in the middle, the maintenance of left side of that trunk line is a different department, right side is different department. In BBMP stormwater drain department, there is a east division, which what this falls under, though it is not in the east side, and some parts of the. So, but then mainly because we were looking at because the project was handled by the BBMP, they created a separate, nodal officers for this project. So that way the BBMP we were able to take care of. The BWSSB and especially BESCOM also has about 3-4 different offices in this area with different engineers managing that. There is and apart from that also you have the Pollution Control Board, sir, which was a very big, I would say crucial agency for us to help implement this thing, and the National Green Tribunal Monitoring Committee also, because since the Bellandur Lake, by the time we started this project, the Bellandur Lake had already been appointed with the monitoring committee, and this comes in the catchment of the Bellandur Lake. We were advised by the central government that, the government of Karnataka wrote to the National Green Tribunal, and they said that we have to consult with the monitoring committee that has already been appointed for the Bellandur Lake. So that's why the earlier processes took a very long time. But when it comes to political will and support, actually we've had support across all the 3 constituencies actually. And especially because, and even from the public, the buy-in has actually, initially slightly hesitant, but even after the first rains after the project, when they are, clearly seeing that the water is not coming inside their homes, then they only started helping out more. And then they also take a lot of ownership into not throwing garbage into the drains. And a large, with daily monitoring, what we realize that the residents are not the people throwing the garbage. It is people who are passing by and throwing the garbage. So even in that silt that Nidhi was showing you, that so much amount of silt was removed, a large part of that was garbage, but it also had things like, sofa, bed that people had disposed of there in their house, everything that has gone into the drain. So in that sense, the local community has been very helpful in doing that. I think the Sudhamnagar corporator was very enthusiastic. He had actually, ex-corporator, he had actually made a board poster and announced to the local people there that there will be boating in the drain. But so I think that I think once after especially desilting and people had started to see that it is actually affecting daily life, then we actually got a lot more buy-in from the political as well.
To add to what Amrita was saying, I think one thing that really helped was the then Chief Secretary, Srimati Vandita Sharma, took a personal interest in this project. So every week we would have calls with her, and this was during COVID, right? So there were video calls held every week with like 20 people attending this call from the various departments or the people who are involved with for whatever reason. And that really helped push this project as much as it has come along today.
So, yeah. So,
last question. Sir, can you ಏನು ನಾವು ಡ್ರೈನೇಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಪಾತ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಸೇಫ್ಟಿ ಮೆಜರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ
ಸರ್ ಈಗ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಎವ್ರಿ 3 minutes ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸಿಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಬಟ್ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಈ ಕಸ್ ಓಕೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಪಾತ್ವೇ ಇರೋದು we looked at a few state cases where they're doing this abroad. So Seoul ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೌತ್ ಕೊರಿಯಾ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಲ್ಲೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ಸು ಅಲಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಈಗ ಎಂಟರ್ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಾವೇನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಫಸ್ಟು ಬ್ಯಾಂಗ್ಳೂರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ on average 60 to 90 rainy days. But now first implementation with safety measures, we can say that few months of the year that will continue to be closed only. Only dry season we will open it to start with. We are putting signage awareness systems everywhere. Lights ಇದೆ actually on top of every drain that will supposed to change color to warn of danger, so ಒಳಗೆ ಹೋಗಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫುಲ್ CCTV ಕ್ಯಾಮೆರಾಸು, ಹೆಡ್ ಕೌಂಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾಫ್ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕನೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಟು ದ ಇಂಟಿಗ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಕಮಾಂಡ್ ಸೆಂಟರ್ BBMPಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಈಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನಾಗರೇಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಸ್ ಎಸ್.
One question in the interest of this audience. All the people ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿರೋರೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ either they have to be civic engaged or politically engaged. They are all interested to be aspiring leaders. You have shown success projects. You have shown projects which have not taken up for various reasons. What is the perseverance? ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಮಯ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರಿ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ, and few advices if you want to give, how they start and take it to its conclusion, how they see there is a gap in the thing, it will not fly, and leave it there. How to set that right expectation if they want to do a micro project in their respective wards. What is your advice?
So just, to broadly answer that question, a project like the question about perseverance and how many projects work out, how many don't. A project like K100, we've been trying to pitch to the government for about 10 years before it actually happened, right? So perseverance is a big piece of it. I think the Banshankari Skywalk that you saw, it's been announced in the BBMP budget for the last 2 years.
Karnataka budget for 2 years, this year's BBMP budget.
This year's BBMP budget, we still don't have clarity if it will actually go into execution, but we'll continue to push it because we understand that it serves the purpose that it does, and it's a great project to actually execute. You want to answer the wards bit?
How you are pushing, madam, who you are talking to execute this project from the government, from
Sir,
who is the person you are talking with from the government?
Sir, it depends on what the project is. So if I'm saying Banshankari flyover, it's the skywalk. It started with, this was actually a commissioned project to start with from BMRCL side because they wanted to connect the metro station to the TTMC. And then we said you can connect it and you can solve a larger problem of the junction. So the MD of BMRCL, who was Mr. Ajay Seth, he had then approached and presented it to the high power committee. And in the high power committee, they had approved, and then there was a discussion with the urban development department that it had to be taken up under BBMP. So that is why there has been a slight delay, because actually the BBMP was going to take it up, but then I think the BBMP are not able to, because of certain aspects of like the tendering and the management, so it might be going back into the BMRCL scope. So that I would say clarity on execution is not there. So then the Banchankri Skyovers case, it is pretty straightforward, because the primary idea of connecting TTMC to the metro station came from BMRCL. So they have actually, even currently the MD Shri Anjum Parvez sir, he has also taken up the initiative forward, and he keeps pushing it to know, you know, if he has to do it or not. If he is doing it, he has assured us that, you know, there is a, I mean, he will push it to the best of his ability. Yeah,
so please take offline. She'll be around
yeah.
This thing. I want to thank Amrita and Nidhi
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.